This video is mostly a compilation of the first 3 Destiny Star Girlfriend visual novel reviews I've done before on this channel, with a brand new additional review of the currently untranslated Fujiko route afterwards. I have timestamps if you want to see specific thoughts on a specific visual novel in the series. Destiny Star Girlfriend is a visual novel developed by Mirai and translated by Shirvune. The original draw for me was the fact that we, for once, have a moege rom-com around a magical girl universe, especially since many times magical girls in visual novels are only used in nukige, especially dark ones. But the real thing that got me hooked into reading Destiny Star Girlfriend immediately was the fact that the developer, Mirai, is apparently a sister company of Minato-Soft, aka the developer for my favorite visual novel, Maja. Shit, that's all you had to say. And in a way, I suppose it is similar-ish to Maja. Destiny Star Girlfriend is very much a lighthearted slice-of-life comedy first and a magical girl action story second. This is low-key an episodic series, with this particular release starring a blonde, egotistical magical girl, Yuuri Kamizumi. As in many magical girl anime and manga, all the magical girls in this series have to keep the fact that they're magical girls a secret to the public. Though in Yuri's case, she goes a step further and fabricates this super nice, caring girl personality that ends up becoming quite popular in school. This causes our protagonist, Seiji Takasugi, to develop a crush on her, but he considers this crush a lost cause as he considers himself just an average guy. But through an amusing set of circumstances, he creates a literal connection to Yuuri. After an injury causes both him and Yuuri to be wounded at the way beginning of the story, a magical girl society representative, masquerading as a school nurse, has to use a technique that sews a red thread between the two characters that slowly heals them over 3 months so they don't die. However, it turns out that this red string connection of the two characters makes it so if they attempt to distance themselves over 1 meter from each other, they start to feel intense pain, which I assume is because of the fatal injuries they should still be healing from. This causes a situation where the two characters are forced to live together for the next 3 months until their wounds finally heal. Throughout this 3-month ordeal, he finds out his supposed perfect ideal girl he's had a crush on is nothing how she acts at school. She's extremely full of herself, letting the fact that she's one of the top rated magical girls of the area get to her head to the point where she gets a little sloppy, which is what originally led to their injury. Most of the first half of the visual novel is pure slice of life interactions between Seiji and Yuuri, and how they have to pretend to be a couple since that's basically the only way they can hide their forced red string connection. The two are forced to figure out all the little things they have to deal with in terms of being forced to constantly be within 1 meter of each other, including wearing a helmet, playing really loud music while the other's using the bathroom. And then of course there's the typical eroge shenanigans where the peeps on the main girl changing with fan service CGs multiple times. Right off the bat, a good amount of your enjoyment of Destiny Star Girlfriend is going to be how much you actually like Yuri's incredibly arrogant personality. I had mixed feelings at first. On one hand, it is pretty refreshing to have a main girl who's actually legitimately confident and full of herself, not just a boring tsundere with fake confidence. On the other hand, it was getting kind of grating dealing with all of Yuri's comments about how she's the best and how she's trying to originally force Seiji to become her servant of sorts. Thankfully, this egotistical personality trait of hers is balanced by 3 things. 1. Seiji, the main protagonist, is surprisingly not a pushover. He has a lot of snark and is definitely willing to roast Yuuri when she's getting way too full of herself, especially since she's so incredibly simple-minded. 2. Yuri's occasional use of amusing English.
フォースと有利の導きがあらんこと。グッド！さあ、ゲームスタート！グッド！スピードクイーンの実力を見せてあげるわ。Holy shit!
3. Yuuri actually does get character development, which I was not expecting to see. I won't spoil how exactly she develops. Let's just say by the time she and Seiji develop their relationship, she's become a far more likable person with some occasional wholesome moments while still having the same core personality at heart. I haven't touched too much on the magical girl stuff yet, and that's mostly because, besides the forced red string thing keeping Yuuri and Seiji together, I'd say the magical girl stuff maybe accounts for a third of the story at most. I'll let the game itself go into more detail if you're really interested, but the general idea is that magical girls are called stars. Yeah, that kind of reminds me of Resident Evil when I first heard it. They are employed by a starry sky council to defeat demons, aka the equivalent of the monster of the week premise usually seen in your average magical girl anime or manga. The whole magical girl employment thing gets surprisingly real, where characters have salaries and contracts and have to negotiate based on how well they're doing in terms of their job, whether it's defeating or capturing demons or making sure civilians are safe. While the magical girl stuff does seem to be more of an occasional backdrop for Yuuri to show off at the way beginning, there is a plot that eventually develops into something interesting enough to drive entertainment later on. While Yuuri is the main girl of this episode, we get introduced to a whole bunch of side characters, some who will be the stars of future sequels. For example, there's Maja, spelled Maja for some reason, the character that attacks Yuuri and Seiji at the way beginning of the game that will be the star of episode 2. And then there's Yuri's Kohai Jr. magical girl, Kanoko, someone who incredibly idolizes Yuuri and low-key simps and is yandere towards her. She'll be the star of episode 3. And then there's the teacher, Fujiko, who has a short fan disc, is a representative of the Magical Girl Council, as well as an acting school teacher and nurse. While these characters get less screen time than the lead character Yuuri, they appear enough for their personalities and jokes to be pretty memorable. That's about all I'll give about story details, since there's a surprisingly decent amount of twists and development that I think are better left experiencing for yourself. I said towards the beginning of this video that Destiny Star Girlfriend is a lighthearted, over-the-top, comedic style visual novel that basically sticks throughout the rest of the story. So if you like this style of storytelling, I think that alone should make you interested in this visual novel. That said, one thing I was surprised by is how surprisingly good the romantic development was. I was first scared this story was going to be a sex-heavy nuki-gay, given the box art and the whole main couple having to stick together for 3 months. The romance actually develops in a slow and steady way, including how it introduces sex into the relationship, which is a pleasant surprise given how many modern eroge has a couple get into the fucking almost immediately after confessing. That said, this is still an eroge, and there will be many perverted jokes, including undressing Yuuri multiple times, lots of fake-out make-out sessions that don't actually lead to H scenes as well. The magical girl action scenes are passable. They're mostly done within like a few minutes, mostly just used as a way to pivot some plot and character developments, but as I said earlier, eventually develop into something interesting enough to drive the plot and development forward. They are still fun to look at though, especially when Yuuri excitedly shouts her attack names.
ベースビーム、ベーストマホーク、ハイパーベース切り、今必殺のベイアタック、ベースパーク、ベースサンシャイン!
Overall, I had a fun time with Destiny Star Girlfriend. I said earlier, it does take a bit of time to get over Yuri's hit or miss attitude related to how overly arrogant and egotistical she was, and the visual novel's slight overuse on the protagonist being perverted humor. But once the main couple get together, Yuuri becomes much more likable and the humor becomes more diverse, which meant I enjoyed the visual novel more as time went on. I don't think Destiny Star Girlfriend is going to blow anyone's minds unless you've just been dying for a magical girl rom-com. I would only recommend this visual novel if you really want to see that premise, or you just like over-the-top, goofy, comedic style of visual novel writing. If you're curious about the length of Destiny Star Girlfriend, it has around 13 in-game chapters, and the average read length on VNDB is about 8 to 9 hours, though it took me about 16 hours on a full auto read. Overall, I would give Destiny Star Girlfriend a 7.5 out of 10. Destiny Star Girlfriend 1 was one of the biggest pleasant surprises of 2023 for me. I enjoyed its surprisingly funny comedy, reminiscent of similar slapstick series by sister companies like Minato Soft's Maja and Minato Carnival's Tsujidou. As one of the few lighthearted rom-coms featuring magical girls, Destiny Star Girlfriend also stood out with its fun and well-developed romance. Somehow, though, the sequel, Destiny Star Girlfriend 2, was even better to me. Although technically a numbered sequel, it's more accurate to consider it a different route, as the story branches at the very beginning. You could theoretically read this before the first Destiny Star, as the game only partially assumes you've read the original. The world building around the magical girl elements remains light throughout. The main reason I prefer the sequel is its focus on the main heroine, Maja. While I liked Yuuri, the main heroine of the original DSG, her extreme arrogance could be grating at times. Maya's quirky, weird personality appeals to me more. She's a warrior girl who's dense, naive, and raised with odd values. For instance, her introduction shows her attempting to live in a park and eat plants to save money. Like in the first game, there's a gimmick where the main character can't be more than a few meters apart from the main heroine without experiencing pain through an accident. In the sequel, only the protagonist Seiji feels pain, whereas in the original, both him and Yuuri were affected. Thankfully, Maya's nicer personality results in fewer accidental separations for comedic purposes. The comedy in the sequel instead centers around Seiji adapting to Maya's eccentricities and their work with demon-based magical girl powers. The magical girl plot is secondary to the romantic comedy aspects, but overall still more interesting than the original DSG. Unlike in the original Destiny Star, where Seiji, the main character, only occasionally took part in battles, in Destiny Star 2, Seiji gets his own powers and works proactively with Maja to defeat the demons. The sequel's plot structure is improved, with the final battle occurring in the last couple of chapters instead of 3/4 through the story in the original Destiny Star. Seiji's role in the final battle is more significant. We get to see more stars, aka the in-universe name for the magical girls, even if they lack sprites. The interesting magical girl setting doesn't get to fully flourish sadly due to the focus on the RomCom elements. After reading Destiny Star 2, I'm convinced this world could easily make for an entertaining one-season anime at least. As said earlier, why I love Destiny Star Girlfriend 2 so much is because of Maja herself. Maja to me is close to the ideal dateable weird girl. She's quirky because she has strong unique values she believes in, talks in a direct way as a trained warrior, and gets excited over unfamiliar things like certain foods. She also has a doting older sister type personality, loving to care for others. An early CG shows Maja allowing Seiji to rest on her bosom to recharge his desires and fuel his dark magical energy. While this may sound odd, it makes sense in the story's context, and Maya's wholehearted approach is goofy yet wholesome. Her mix of quirky airheadedness and wholesomeness makes every interaction with Maja incredibly fun to watch. While the romantic chemistry might not be as developed as Seiji and Yuuri's in Destiny Star 1, I personally prefer Maya's hilarious comfiness. I don't know what else to say. Maya's personality embodies almost everything I like in my ideal weird girl, making her one of my new favorite visual novel waifus. Her personality and humor carry this visual novel to a high score for me. Despite my love for this visual novel, it does have a few flaws compared to the original. This sequel introduces plot-relevant H scenes, which felt awkward at times due to Maya's initial naivete and innocence. Let's just say Maja openly and even aggressively consents to things she's probably not fully aware of, which is just asking for a hormonal boy to more than take advantage of when he's given the okay. However, this issue resolves as the relationship develops into an admittedly hilarious and wholesome confession scene. The humor of the visual novel generally remains funny, especially around Maja as I've said multiple times, but there were a few new recurring jokes I wasn't enjoying as much. For example, the teacher Fujiko is portrayed more as a girl failure in creating certain magical items without testing, leading to accidental lewd situations. The new mascot, Hughes, is similarly incompetent outside of demon-related advice. I wasn't a fan of the new character Petra, Maya's adoptive little sister from Germany. While I appreciate the Two's backstory, in fact I wish we got more details on it, Petra's role as a gremlin troll character was mostly annoying. I hope the final game in the trilogy improves this aspect of her. Despite the issues I mentioned though, Destiny Star Girlfriend 2 was a fun, great experience filled with hilarious moments, comfy romance, and enjoyable magical girl fights. I'd happily revisit this route for its weird girl hilarity and wholesomeness. I personally rate Destiny Star Girlfriend 2 a 9 out of 10, though this is due to my heavy bias towards Maja. Your personal score might differ depending on how you feel about Maya's personality, as the series largely depends on how much you like the main heroine in each entry. I have one last line I have to share about Destiny Star Girlfriend 2. Destiny Star Girlfriend 1 and 2 became two of my favorite modern moege visual novels. They had a good mix of hilarious comedy similar to the Minato Soft and Minato Carnival visual novels, Maja and Tsujidou, as well as incorporating lighthearted magical girl elements, even if they occasionally veered into overly eroge-centric fan service. So how does Destiny Star Girlfriend 3 compare to the previous two games? In short, I definitely like it overall, but it's probably the most inconsistent entry of the main trilogy. Similar to its predecessors, it's a one-heroine-focused visual novel, this time being Kaneko's route, an underclassman who's generally quiet and snarky, but loyal and devoted. In the original two games, she was mostly a supporting character I was pretty much neutral about, as she didn't have a standout personality. Thankfully, in Destiny Star Girlfriend 3, they did a good job making her more prominent. They gave her new sprites and a song, and the romance dialogue between her and Seiji felt surprisingly natural. Unlike Yuri's bombastic nature or Maya's misunderstandings due to not fully grasping romance, Kanoko is initially the most normal of the three girls, aware of the budding mutual attraction and keenly aware of sexual matters. I think Destiny Star Girlfriend 3 handled the magical girl elements best. It's actually set in the character's third year of high school, a full year over when Yuuri and Maya's routes start. By then, there's already a sense of camaraderie among the major characters, including newer support character Petra from DSG2. This leads to much earlier group fights and enjoyable banter among the main 5 to 6 characters compared to the first two Destiny Stars. While I appreciated that romantic dialogue between Seiji and Kanoko being natural, I wasn't as big on how they actually got together. Unlike the last two games where the main guy and the main girl getting together made sense, Seiji and Kaneko's relationship kinda relies too much on contrived conveniences for me. There's even references to past lives and destiny later in the game that suggests the writer were really reaching to justify this pairing. Seiji and Kanoko once again have a gimmick where they are forced to stay within 1 meter of each other, lest they face the awkward consequences. This time, the bond between Seiji and Kanoko is by far the most lewd of the main trilogy. In the previous 2 games, the bond between Seiji and the main girl usually resulted in one or both characters feeling actual physical pain that could lead to death. In Destiny Star 3's case, Kanoko is the only one who faces a consequence, which is being secretly horny. When she gives into her power, her body wants to obtain bodily fluids from other people to power herself up. Initially, I found this an amusing subversion compared to the first 2 games, with Kaneko's primary comedy gimmick being that she's a huge closet pervert. The main character walks in on her reading adult doujins and erotica in the library, and there are moments where he accidentally finds her masturbating under her bed as they are sleeping right next to each other. I appreciate visual novels being open about girls being perverted. In my experience, real-life girls can be just as, if not more perverted than guys given the right opportunities. It's annoying when visual novels and society as a whole paint guys as the main perverts of humanity, so it's refreshing that Destiny Star 3 treats this as both a funny comedy gimmick for Kanoko, but also a way to show that it's okay for girls to like sexual stuff. However, Kaneko's pervertedness being a major plot point for her magical girl powers started to annoy me more over time. It led to excessive fan service moments, including by far the highest number of panty shots in the whole series. Kanoko having to become a semen demon to fuel her magical powers felt reminiscent of Fate Stay Night. I couldn't take it seriously since Yuuri and Maja did not need sexual stuff in the same way as this. A late plot twist related to Kanoko further complicates matters for me. Without spoiling too much, Kanoko gets to enact her apparently hidden deepest sexual fantasies, leading to many non-consensual situations. This brought down what should have been a great plot twist, but I couldn't take a few of the later chapters seriously, as I was unsure if I was supposed to be shocked, amused, or aroused. Suffice to say, these chapters were easily my least favorite part of the entire trilogy. Thankfully, this low point was followed by one of my favorites in the trilogy, a cool reference to Dragon Ball Z. I was glad to see that the equivalent of a Patara fusion was actually useful for once, unlike in the original DBZ series. If you enjoy the more lewd aspects of the Destiny Star series and want to see a perverted girl character be plot relevant, this might be your favorite entry. Alternatively, if you like Kaneko's quiet yet loyal, even jealous personality, you might like this game even more than I did. As said earlier, I found Destiny Star 3 to be the most inconsistent of the main trilogy, with some of the highest highs and lowest lows of the trilogy. I would say Destiny Star Girlfriend 2 is my overall favorite, mostly because I like Maja the best among the main girls. However, I do think Destiny Star 3 is slightly better than Destiny Star 1. Overall, the Destiny Star Girlfriend series has become one of my new favorite modern moege titles. I'm glad the developer Mirai was finally able to create a lighthearted magical girl rom-com, something I felt was lacking in the eroge visual novel genre. I would give Destiny Star Girlfriend 3 specifically an 8 out of 10. There is technically one more Destiny Star Girlfriend title, the rare Teacher Route. However, it's very short at 2 to 3 hours, and Shirobune rarely translates fan discs, so I wouldn't expect this Fujiko route to be translated into English. Because I don't trust Shirobune to translate it, I decided to read the untranslated episode of Fujiko fan disc version using my rusty Japanese reading skills. Thankfully, this lighthearted slice-of-life title was relatively easy to understand, especially since I was familiar with the terminology from the previous Destiny Star Girlfriend visual novels. This is a short 2 to 3 hour fan disc, essentially a route with almost all the magical girl elements stripped away. Fujiko, the teacher side heroine, is a retired magical girl who can only perform minimal healing compared to her prime years. This game is primarily a pure humor-based romantic comedy, which worked well given my enjoyment of previous Destiny Star entries. For those who have been looking for a lighthearted teacher route in visual novels, I'd say this is an overall decent one. It maintains the series' consistent gimmick of always finding a way for the main character and the main heroine to have to stay within 1 meter of each other or experience physical pain. I gotta give props to the developers for sticking to this gimmick all the way to the end. Fujiko was and still is a likable heroine with a caring, ditzy personality. She enjoys creating inventions but struggles with testing them, leading to comedic accidents. In this game specifically, her terrible cooking skills are actually hilariously well done for once due to its unique over-the-top nature. All her interactions with her in general are quite fun. I thought the way the main character Seiji rizzed her just by being a super diligent student was honestly kind of amusing. I would say the game's primary flaw, besides its short length, is the series' typical reliance on pre-relationship eroge fan service to develop the couple's relationship. At times, the protagonist Seiji seems to push boundaries a bit too much, with Fujiko being overly accepting of his arguably non-consensual advances. Outside that though, I would give Destiny Star Girlfriend, the episode of Fujiko fan disc specifically, a 7 out of 10. If Shirobune somehow eventually translate this, what I said in this review should still apply. After reading all 4 Destiny Star Girlfriend entries, I now consider it one of my favorite modern moege series. As said throughout the video, I like how I basically consider it the next version of Majikoi and Tsujidou, a magical girl action rom-com with likable, relatable characters. While it does have flaws like overusing eroge fan service, especially pre-relationships, and occasional hit-or-miss jokes, The overall humor, characters, and romance were pretty engaging to me. I strongly recommend the Destiny Star Girlfriend series to those seeking an over-the-top comedy, romantic stories with a unique magical girl theme, and memorable relationship development.